Hey, good morning. How you doing today? Bob Folks here with the Gilligalloo. Spring is in the air. We got lots of birds around. We got our cardinals singing. We got all kinds of things happening these days. Glad to see it. We've had a great winter here in Eastern Ontario. Looking forward to a little bit more winter before we get right into the springtime. But lately I've had the good fortune of being able to speak at a fair number of different organizations. A few of them being horticultural societies. And you may have maybe remember over the last little while that I've also oh, there we go. There's the cardinal. I've done a couple of videos on wild parsnip and the applications of a herbicide pesticide that they want to spray to try and control the wild parsnip. And when I was last week, in fact, I was at a horticultural society and we got talking about part of the presentation was, and the message of the presentation was about perception. And we all at some point have a perception of things or circumstance in our mind. And this particular talk was about changing our perspective on how we garden and how we keep our yard. And one of the main points that I wanted to talk about today was changing our perception on what we plant and why we plant it. So let's take that a step further. What we plant. Do we plant native plants? Do we plant things that are just pretty for us to look at? Do we have a motive with our garden planting and our yard planting? Are we doing things so that we can create habitat? Are we doing things so that we are planting things because we know what animals or birds or insects, bugs, butterflies, bees? Are we planting things because we know what is going to use our plants? Or are we planting things to just purely give us joy, which is a great thing. I don't mean anything by that. But what the message then was, plan your yard, and plant your garden to create a habitat that is going to be used by our friends in nature, which are the plants and birds and bugs and animals and all those kind of things. Because we've been hypnotized a little bit, I believe, into the terms of, I get asked here quite frequently in the store, how do we stop woodpeckers from pecking on people's trees? Like, I don't even know how to answer that, to be honest with you. I understand, and sometimes they get on our houses and our sheds and all those other, but that's what they do. We're part of nature, and nature is part of us, and we're living within nature. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And then the next thing we get into is grass, or your lawn, for example, which a lot of people are considering and commenting and making reference to lawns as desert because it supports nothing. And then there's a whole thing, and you've heard me talk about it before, that the most often the type of lawn seeds and stuff are not necessarily native to here, so they don't survive very well, and then so-called weeds take over, and then herbicide or pesticide is sprayed for the weeds and bugs and things, and then a replant of that particular grass seed, and it's a vicious cycle that serves no one, including ourselves. And the interesting point, major scientists and environmental leaders are suggesting very, very strongly that we start to panic about the survival of the race of humans. They're not saying if, they're saying when. And if we don't change our ways dramatically, very quickly, and change our perception, things are going to take place. So in previous videos and things, we had done a very at length discussion about the wild meadow that I planted in our yard, and I put in a package of flowers, a package for flowers for the bees and a package for the butterflies. And this one bag of seed is a native prairie meadow mix that I got, and the list of ingredients and things is on the previous video, and we can show that here actually, the list of ingredients that are in this wild meadow mix. It's a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous addition to our yard. I cannot stress enough how much enjoyment and pleasure I've got out of this. It requires absolutely no maintenance. I don't do a thing except sit and watch all the birds, bugs, butterflies, deer that use this meadow. I did about 1,000 square feet, so if you check out our YouTube channel, Gilligalloo on YouTube, you'll see that particular video on when I did that planting. This will be its 4th summer, and I can't wait for it to blossom. The colors, the variety of plants, and the activity that takes place inside of that is amazing. So let's change our perception, and I'm going to have a special guest here very shortly, and we're going to have a little talk about changing our perception on what so-called weeds are.